Welcome to This Explainer. Look, I want you to pause and think for a second about a quiet little belief you probably carry around with you every single day. If you're here watching this, you're likely the kind of person who really prides themselves on having a sharp, analytical mind. You probably think that your intelligence just naturally protects you from deception, right? Like you analyze situations clearly, you're a critical thinker, and you can spot an obvious lie from a mile away. So naturally, you just assume you are completely immune to being manipulated.
But let me ask you point blank, does your ability to think critically actually keep you safe? I mean, does seeing through the obvious everyday tricks mean you can't be played? We tend to think of manipulation as this thing that only happens to, the naive or the uninformed. But the fascinating source material we're looking at today, it completely flips that assumption totally on its head.
Because here is the hard truth. No, your intelligence does not make you safe. In fact, that false sense of security is the exact reason why highly intelligent people are very often the absolute easiest to manipulate. The very traits that make you so smart are the exact same traits a manipulator relies on to control you. Today, we're going to break down exactly how this happens through 5 specific vulnerabilities. All right, let's get into number 1, the logic trap. This is all about how your greatest strength, your over-reliance on logic, can literally be weaponized against you. Think about a real-life scenario for a second. Let's say someone corners you in an argument at work, or maybe your partner starts justifying some sudden weird change in plans. Deep down, your gut is screaming at you that something is wrong. But what do? Because you're smart, you engage. The manipulator presents a perfectly constructed, reasonable-sounding argument. So you start searching for the logical flaw. You start analyzing their reasoning. And right there, boom, you've hit step 3. You completely disconnect from your instincts. You completely miss the fact that the argument wasn't actually designed to be won. It was just designed to keep you busy. Just look at the direct contrast here between your behavior and the manipulator's payoff. Your response is to treat this whole thing like a giant puzzle to be solved, so you analyze the reasoning. But their benefit, it keeps you entirely trapped in your own head. Listen, manipulation rarely ever survives a raw, instinctual gut feeling. If you just trusted your instinct, you'd walk away. But manipulation almost always survives logical analysis. Why? Because a skilled manipulator builds their arguments specifically to look reasonable. They are literally using your own massive processing power just to distract you. Okay, moving on to number 2, the flattery hack. You know, intelligent people are vastly more susceptible to flattery than they realize, but it requires a very specific, highly sophisticated kind of praise. A skilled manipulator is not going to walk up to an intelligent target and compliment their looks, or their fancy car, or their bank account. You would see right through that in a second. Instead, imagine a colleague trying to dump their massively complex workload on you. They'll target the thing you value the absolute most, your mind. They'll say something like, you're one of the few people smart enough to see this clearly and untangle this total mess. Boom. Intelligence becomes their entry point. They make you feel uniquely understood on an intellectual level. And because you've spent your entire life valuing your own mind above pretty much everything else, you just naturally accept this complex flattery as deep validation. But notice the hidden benefit for them. By validating your intellect, they completely bypass your normal guard. You drop your defenses in a way you never, ever would for a simpler compliment. You literally open the front door and invite them right in, all because they complimented the architecture of your mind. Which brings us to number 3, the rationalization engine. This is where your powerful capacity for nuanced, complex thinking shifts from being this amazing asset into a massive liability. Paint a picture in your head of a real-life relationship. Maybe it's a romantic partner, or maybe it's a toxic boss, where they just behave terribly towards you. An average person might just look at that and say, wow, that person is a jerk, and walk right out the door. But not you. Your mind immediately goes to work explaining it away. You construct highly sophisticated reasons for their bad behavior. You'll spend hours analyzing their childhood trauma, the stress of their current context, searching for alternative explanations for why they lashed out. You literally turn yourself into their amateur, unpaid therapist. And the brutal irony of this is perfectly captured right here. While your response is to burn all your energy, considering context and history and nuance, using your genuine strength, the manipulator is practically relaxing on a beach. They never actually have to justify their toxic behavior because your highly intelligent mind is doing all the heavy lifting for them. You are making their excuses for them, and honestly, you're doing it way better than they ever could. All right, let's look at number 4, the need to be right. Now this one cuts deep. because it really touches on the heavy burden of your identity. Manipulators identify this need very quickly, and they use it with surgical precision. They create situations where, for you to admit you're being played, say, realizing a sophisticated investment you heavily vouched for is actually a total scam, you also have to admit that your judgment was completely terribly flawed. For someone whose core identity is so deeply tied to being smart, observant, and right all the time, admitting you were totally fooled is an almost unbearable psychological blow. It means you were wrong about the person, wrong about the situation, and most terrifyingly of all, wrong about your own brilliant judgment. And because that admission is just so painful, instead of acknowledging the truth, your instinct is to find increasingly sophisticated explanations to prove that you aren't actually being tricked. You convince yourself it's just a misunderstanding or, part of a larger complex dynamic that only you can see. And the manipulator? They reap the reward. The manipulation continues indefinitely. The smarter you are, the more convincing your internal excuses become, and the longer they get to maintain control over you. It's wild. And that leads us to number 5, the ultimate vulnerability. This right here is the ultimate vulnerability for the highly intelligent mind, the dangerous gap between analytical intelligence and emotional awareness. Notice the complete asymmetry in this battle. The arena they drag you into isn't built on facts. It's a purely emotional space. Yet there you are, walking into it wielding logic, data, and reasoning as your weapons. It's like bringing a spreadsheet to a knife fight. Meanwhile, their weapons are guilt, fear, love, and feelings of inadequacy. Listen, intelligence and emotional awareness are completely separate things. You can have an extraordinary ability to analyze data, but a downright terrible ability to recognize what you are actually feeling in the moment. So you walk into an emotional battle wielding logic, almost completely unarmed, wondering why on earth your brilliant mind isn't winning the fight.
Finally, let's wrap this up with our conclusion, the qualities they need.
This brings us to the absolute hardest truth of this entire explainer. When you step back, a totally chilling reality emerges about the relationship between your strengths and their strategy. Constructing complex explanations, considering multiple perspectives, giving people the benefit of the doubt, and trusting your own sharp reasoning, these are genuinely good traits. These are the exact qualities that make you a smart, incredibly capable person. But they are exactly the qualities a skilled manipulator desperately requires their target to have in order to succeed. Protecting yourself doesn't mean you need to become cynical or less thoughtful or somehow less intelligent. It just means you have to start recognizing how these massive strengths are actively being used as leverage against you. I really want to leave you with this final provocative realization straight from our source material today. Intelligence is not a shield. It is a door. Seriously, stop thinking your brilliant mind is some impenetrable fortress wall that automatically keeps bad actors out. It is a doorway. And if you don't start pairing that analytical mind with raw emotional awareness and a deep trust in your own gut instincts, you have to ask yourself, who in your life already knows exactly how to open that door? Think about it. Thanks for watching.